The Grand Council chamber buzzed with panic. 47 different alien species had gathered for an emergency meeting, and none of them could agree on anything. Their voices, automatically translated by advanced computers, mixed together into a mess of fear and confusion. Some aliens were shouting. Others were making strange clicking sounds. A few were changing colors rapidly, which apparently meant they were very upset. In the middle of all this chaos sat Ambassador Robert Hayes from Earth. He was an older gentleman with silver hair and deep lines around his eyes that spoke of a long career in diplomacy. While everyone else was losing their minds, Robert just sat there quietly, watching everything unfold with the calm patience of someone who had seen worse situations before. The Quellan representative was the loudest. It looked like a jellyfish made of living glass, and right now it was flashing angry red colors. "The Zrathian horde has destroyed everything," it screamed. 17 billion people are dead, gone, wiped out in just a few weeks. An alien that looked like a giant bird with 4 wings spoke up next. Its voice came out as chirps and whistles, but the translator made it sound urgent and frightened. "We sent 800 warships to stop them, 800 of our best military vessels. The Zrathians destroyed them like they were nothing. We might as well have thrown paper airplanes at them." Standing at the center of the chamber was Varn, the Council's military leader. He was massive, easily 3 times the size of a human, with thick armored skin and 4 arms. He was projecting holographic maps that showed the Zrathian advance. Red dots covered dozens of star systems, spreading like a disease across a galaxy. It looked bad, really bad. "Every species here needs to send everything they have," Varn announced in a voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. "We need at least 5,000 ships to have any chance of stopping them. This is an existential threat to all of us." That's when Robert cleared his throat. It wasn't loud, but somehow everyone noticed. The entire chamber went quiet as all those alien eyes turned to look at the human. Varn's arms crossed over his chest. "Ambassador Hayes," he said, trying to sound diplomatic, but failing to hide his impatience. "Humanity joined this council 3 years ago. Our records show you have about 200 military ships capable of faster-than-light travel. We understand this is most of what you have, but we need you to send at least 150 of them to help with the defense." Robert stood up slowly, taking his time to smooth out his suit jacket. "We'll send what we think is right for the job," he said simply. You could have heard a pin drop in that massive chamber. "What do you mean, what's right?" The bird alien's feathers were standing straight up now. "This is the end of civilization as we know it. What could possibly be right except sending everything you possibly can?" Robert picked up his electronic tablet and started walking toward the exit. "The United Human Space Force will send ships to deal with the Zrathian problem. We'll let you know where your forces should stay out of the way." "How many ships are you sending?" Varn demanded, his voice getting louder. Robert paused at the door and looked back with a slight smile. 1. The chamber exploded. Aliens were screaming in languages the translators couldn't keep up with. The jellyfish alien turned so dark red it was almost black. Several delegates were standing up and waving appendages angrily in the air. "You're making fun of us," Varn roared, his voice shaking the floor. "Everyone here is facing extinction, and you send one ship? One ship? This is an insult." Robert's expression didn't change. "One ship," he repeated calmly. "The UHSF Prometheus will reach the Verithan system in 4 days. I strongly suggest you keep your forces away from the combat zone." With that, he walked out. The massive doors slammed shut behind him with a boom that echoed through the chamber like a final punctuation mark. Inside, the remaining aliens completely lost it. Some were calling for humanity to be kicked out of the council immediately. Others were saying humans were clearly too stupid and primitive to understand how serious the situation was. A few were already writing humanity off as doomed, saying it was sad that such a young species would be wiped out so quickly. None of them had any idea what was really about to happen. The moment Robert was alone in the corridor outside, he tapped his communication device. "Admiral Patterson," he said quietly, "they reacted exactly as we predicted. They don't get it. Send the Prometheus." On the other side of that transmission, Thousands of light years away, Admiral James Patterson was standing on the bridge of the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. Around him, 800 crew members were running through their final checks before departure. "Understood, Ambassador," Patterson replied, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who knew exactly what his ship could do. "Captain Rodriguez has everything ready. We'll jump to faster than light in 6 hours." The transmission ended, and Robert allowed himself a small smile. The Galactic Council would learn soon enough. They measured military power by counting ships. They thought the side with the most vessels would win. That's how wars worked for them. But humanity had learned something different during thousands of years of fighting wars on Earth. They'd learned it through blood and fire, through victories and terrible defeats, through weapons that got more and more deadly until they could destroy entire cities in seconds. Humans had learned that wars aren't won by whoever has the most soldiers. Wars are won by whoever can hit the hardest at the right moment, by whoever has the best technology, by whoever is willing to do what it takes to end things quickly and decisively. One ship would be more than enough. It had to be. Meanwhile, in the Verithan system where the battle was about to take place, the Zrathian horde was listening to everything the Galactic Council was saying. They had spies everywhere, intercepting every transmission, every message, every panic communication between the alien species. In the command center of their largest warship, the War Master was listening to a recording of Robert's announcement. The War Master was an ancient creature, covered in scars from 1,000 battles across 100 worlds. It had personally led the conquest of 47 star systems. It had destroyed species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. It had seen every kind of defense, every kind of strategy, every kind of desperation that losing species could throw at it. And now it was listening to the humans say they were sending one ship. One ship? The War Master chittered, its mandibles clicking together in what passed for laughter among its kind. "These humans send one single ship against our 1,000. The other Zrathian officers in the command center joined in the laughter. It spread through the room like a wave of clicking, chittering sounds. "Should we even bother to fight it, War Master?" One of the younger officers asked. "It seems almost cruel to destroy it, like stepping on an insect." The War Master thought about it for a moment, still amused. "Yes," it finally decided. "When this human ship arrives, send a small force to meet it. Maybe 200 vessels. Let's see what these newcomers are capable of. Their arrogance is entertaining." More laughter filled the Zrathian command center. They had conquered nearly 50 star systems. They had defeated species with billions of years of history. They had broken military alliances that had stood for longer than humanity had existed. What could one ship possibly do against them? What the Zrathians didn't know, what the Galactic Council didn't understand, and what only a handful of humans truly appreciated, was that the Prometheus wasn't just a ship. It was a statement. It was a culmination of 10,000 years of human warfare condensed into one vessel. It was everything humanity had learned about killing, surviving, and winning, all built into a single platform. The Galactic Council thought humanity was being arrogant or stupid. The Zrathians thought humanity was providing entertainment before they died. But Robert Hayes knew the truth as he walked back to the human embassy through the quiet corridors of the Council station. In 4 days, everyone would understand why humanity only needed to send one ship. In 4 days, the galaxy would learn what happens when you threaten the friends of a species that had perfected warfare as an art form. In 4 days, the Zrathian horde would learn that sometimes one is more than enough. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood in the center of the bridge, her eyes moving across the glowing tactical screens that surrounded her like a cocoon of information. She was 42 years old, which might sound young to be commanding humanity's most powerful warship, but she spent the last 10 years of her life in deep space, learning every trick, every strategy, every possible way a battle could go wrong. She'd earned this command chair the hard way. The bridge hummed with quiet energy. Her crew moved with practiced precision, each person focused on their station, checking systems, running diagnostics, preparing for what was about to happen. There was no panic here, no fear, just professionals doing a job they'd trained years to do. "Captain," "We're dropping out of faster than light in 30 seconds," called out Lieutenant Tom Baker from the navigation station. He was a younger officer with steady hands and a mind like a calculator when it came to plotting courses through space. Elena's voice cut through the quiet hum of the bridge. "All stations, move to battle readiness. Protocol Alpha." Her tone was calm, almost conversational, but everyone on the bridge snapped to attention. That was the thing about Elena's command style. She never had to yell. Years of experience had taught her that calm authority was more effective than shouting. "Foster, the second we drop into normal space, I want every sensor we have active and feeding data to my screen." "Yes, Captain," responded Commander David Foster from a station near her command chair. He was her second in command, a man in his 50s with gray streaking through his hair and more combat experience than most people accumulated in a lifetime. 23 years on military vessels had taught him to stay cool when things got hot. Weapons are charged and ready. Defense systems are online. All our drone bays are loaded and prepared to launch. We're ready for whatever's waiting for us out there. Elena settled back into her command chair, feeling the deep vibration of the ship's reactor through the floor. It was a comforting feeling, that constant hum of power. The Prometheus wasn't just any ship. It was a result of everything humanity had learned about war, survival, and technology, all packed into one massive vessel. While other species built fleets of decent ships, humans had decided to build individual ships that could fight like entire fleets. Dropping out of faster than light in 3, 2, 1, the view screen flickered as reality reasserted itself around the Prometheus. One moment they were traveling faster than light, existing in that strange bubble of warped space. The next moment they were back in normal space at the edge of the Verithan system, and the tactical displays immediately lit up like a Christmas tree. "Contact," announced Ensign Lisa Morgan from the sensor station. She was young, barely 25, but she had eyes like a hawk when it came to reading sensor data. Her voice stayed steady even as the numbers on her screen climbed higher and higher. "I'm reading multiple hostile vessels. Lots of them. Captain, I'm counting over 3,000 Zrathian ships throughout the system. They've set up blockades around all 3 planets that have people living on them. 3,000 ships. The number hung in the air for a moment. Any normal military force would have turned around right then and there. 3,000 against 1 were impossible odds by any conventional measure. But the Prometheus wasn't conventional, and Elena Rodriguez hadn't come here to run away. "They've spotted us," Foster added, his fingers dancing across his control panel. "I'm picking up energy spikes across their fleet. They're powering up weapons, adjusting positions. They're definitely mobilizing to meet us." Elena leaned forward slightly, studying the tactical display with the intensity of a chess master analyzing a board. The way the Zrathian ships were positioned told her a lot. They weren't just randomly scattered around. This was careful military planning. Ships were positioned to cover each other, with overlapping fields of fire, so nothing could get through without being shot at from multiple angles. They had mobile reserves ready to respond to threats. They had a clear command structure with larger vessels coordinating the smaller ones. These weren't pirates or raiders or some disorganized mob. This was a real military force with real training and real experience. The Zrathians had conquered dozens of star systems. They knew what they were doing. That just made what was about to happen more interesting. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Jake Cooper called out from the communication station. He was a solid officer, good at his job, but right now he looked uncomfortable. "It's from the Galactic Council observation post. They're asking us to, well, they're pretty much begging us to leave immediately." He hesitated, then continued. "Ma'am, they're saying we should get out of here before we get ourselves killed." A few of the younger crew members shifted uncomfortably at that. The idea that the Galactic Council thought they were about to die wasn't exactly encouraging. But Elena just smiled slightly. "Acknowledge their message. Cooper, tell them we appreciate their concern. But we're here to do a job, and we intend to finish it." "Yes, ma'am." Elena stood up and walked closer to the main view screen, her hands clasped behind her back. Out there in the darkness of space, 3,000 enemy ships were getting ready to fight. They probably thought this was going to be easy. One ship against their entire force? They probably thought the humans were either crazy or stupid. They were about to learn that humanity was neither. Foster, what's the status of all our systems? The executive officer ran his eyes down his displays. Everything is operating at peak efficiency, Captain. Our reactor is producing more power than we'll probably need. Our weapons are ready. Our defensive shields are at maximum strength. Our point defense systems are online and tracking targets. We've got 2,000 combat drones ready to launch on your command. All repair systems are standing by. Medical bay is prepared for casualties. He looked up at her. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Good. Elena turned to face her crew. Listen up, everyone. In a few minutes, we're going to engage the largest concentration of enemy forces any of us have ever faced. The Zrathians think they have us outnumbered. They think this is going to be an easy victory for them. She paused, making eye contact with several crew members. They're wrong. We didn't come here to fight fair. We came here to win. The Prometheus was built for exactly this kind of situation. One ship operating alone, facing overwhelming odds. We have technology they can't imagine. We have weapons they've never seen. We have training and experience from a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. The bridge was completely silent now. Everyone listening. The Galactic Council is watching us right now, probably thinking we're about to die. The Zrathians are preparing to destroy us, probably laughing about how easy this will be. In a few minutes, both of them are going to learn something important about humanity. Elena smiled, and there was steel in that smile. They're going to learn that when humans send one ship, it's because one ship is all we need. They're going to learn that we don't measure military strength by counting vessels. We measure by results. She returned to her command chair and sat down. Mr. Baker, set course to the nearest concentration of enemy ships. Regular cruising speed. No need to rush. Course set, Captain. Foster, keep all weapons on standby, but don't activate targeting systems yet. I want them to think we're not taking them seriously. Aye, Captain. As the Prometheus began moving deeper into the Verithan system, the crew settled into that calm, focused state that came before combat. They'd trained for this. They'd practiced this scenario hundreds of times in simulations. But this was real. This was the moment when everything they'd learned, everything they prepared for, would be put to the test. On the view screen, the cloud of red markers representing enemy ships began to move, repositioning themselves to intercept the Prometheus. Elena watched them come, her expression calm, her mind already 3 steps ahead, planning, calculating, preparing to show the galaxy what one human ship could do. The Zrathians were about to get a very painful education. Less than 6 hours after Prometheus had destroyed 200 Zrathian warships in under 4 minutes, the Galactic Council was back in session. But this time, everything was different. The massive chamber that had been filled with panic and chaos before was now buzzing with a different kind of energy. Shock, disbelief, and underneath it all, something the council members weren't used to feeling. Fear. Ambassador Robert Hayes walked back to his seat, taking his time, letting his eyes sweep across the room. The change was obvious. Before, when he'd announced humanity would send one ship, these aliens had looked at him with contempt. Some had laughed. Others had been angry. They thought humans were either fools or cowards. Nobody was laughing now. The way they looked at him had completely changed. Now there was uncertainty in their eyes. Caution, respect, maybe, or the beginning of it. Some of them wouldn't even make eye contact. That was good, Robert thought. Uncertainty meant they were finally taking humanity seriously. Uncertainty meant they were paying attention. Varn, the massive military coordinator, stood at the center of the chamber. The 4-armed alien who had been so confident before seemed different now. Smaller somehow, even though he hadn't physically changed. His voice, when he spoke, was carefully controlled, like he was trying very hard not to sound scared. Ambassador Hayes, Varn began, and Robert noticed he used a respectful form of address this time, not the dismissive tone from before. The council requires an explanation. Our observation post recorded your vessel engaging, and destroying over 200 Zrathian warships. The entire battle lasted less than 4 minutes. He paused, and Robert could see he was struggling to find the right words. This goes against everything we know about military combat. Every principle, every doctrine, every rule of engagement we developed over millions of years. How is this even possible? Robert stood up slowly, deliberately taking his time. He let the silence stretch out, let it fill the chamber. Let every alien representative sit there wondering what he was going to say. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through all the translation devices. Coordinator Varn, honored delegates, you've asked me a question, but I don't think you really understand what you're asking. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with different representatives. You want to know how one ship defeated 200 ships. But that's not the real question. The real question is, why did we build a ship that could do that in the first place? He pulled out a small device from his pocket and activated it. Holographic images appeared in the air above the chamber floor, floating where everyone could see them. The images showed Earth, slowly rotating, blue and green and beautiful against the black of space. This is my home world, Robert said softly. Beautiful, isn't it? Look at those blue oceans, those green continents, those white clouds. From up here in space, it looks so peaceful, so calm, so safe. He paused. But Earth has another name in our history books. We call it the Cradle of War. The images changed. Now they showed humans from thousands of years ago, wearing primitive armor, fighting with swords and spears. Armies clashing on ancient battlefields. Medieval castles under siege with stones being flung by giant catapults. Lines of soldiers with muskets, firing volleys of lead balls at each other through clouds of smoke. For 5,000 years of written history, humanity has been fighting wars. Constantly, without stopping. We've spent 5 millennia perfecting the art of killing each other. We've developed strategies and tactics through trial and error. We've learned from every victory and every defeat. Every major technological breakthrough in human history happened because we needed better ways to fight wars. The jellyfish-like Quellen representative's body pulsed with agitated colors. All species have wars in their past, Ambassador. Every civilization goes through a violent phase before they mature. This doesn't explain. You're right, Robert interrupted, his voice firm. All species have wars. But tell me this. How many species have had continuous, uninterrupted warfare for their entire recorded history? How many have fought wars so terrible, so devastating, that they almost made themselves extinct? Not once, not twice, multiple times. The holographic images changed again, and the entire chamber went silent. The new images showed trenches from World War I, filled with mud and bodies. Bombers from World War II dropping explosives on cities. And then the mushroom clouds. Nuclear explosions turning cities into ash and rubble in seconds. The silence in the chamber was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. We invented weapons that could kill millions of people in seconds, Robert said, his voice barely above a whisper now. We created bombs powerful enough to end our entire civilization, to make our beautiful planet uninhabitable, to wipe out every human being who had ever lived. He paused, letting that sink in. And we didn't just invent these weapons. We used them on ourselves, on our own cities, on our own people. He looked around at the shocked faces of the alien delegates. We learned what it means to stand at the edge of total extinction and look down into that darkness. We learned what it feels like to have the power to destroy everything we'd ever built, everything we'd ever created, everyone we'd ever loved. And somehow, we managed to step back from that edge. Robert changed the images again. Now they showed human scientists working, engineers building, people cooperating and creating. When we finally achieved faster-than-light travel and went to the stars, we had a choice to make. We could go out there as peaceful explorers, hoping the universe would be kind to us. Or we could go out there prepared for the worst, carrying everything we'd learned from 10,000 years of warfare. We chose preparation, he said simply, because we'd learned a hard lesson. We'd learned in blood and fire and the ashes of burned cities. Hope is not a strategy. Wishing for peace doesn't make peace happen. The only way to guarantee peace is to be so prepared for war that nobody dares to attack you. The images change to show the Prometheus being built in orbital shipyards, piece by piece, over months and years. The ship you saw destroy 200 enemy vessels isn't a warship, not by our standards. It's an expeditionary cruiser designed for long-range exploration missions that might last decades. But we built it with one assumption in mind. It might have to fight alone, far from any help, against unknown enemies. Robert pulled up technical diagrams that made the alien delegates lean forward to see better. The Prometheus has manufacturing facilities on board that can produce replacement parts. It has repair systems that can rebuild entire sections of the hull while under enemy fire. It carries enough fuel to operate at full combat power for 3 years without resupplying. Its reactor generates more energy than most of your civilizations use in a month. He looked directly at Varn. But the power isn't what makes it dangerous. What makes it dangerous is what we do with that power. Every weapon system, every defensive measure, every tactical protocol was designed by a species that has been fighting wars since we live in caves. We don't just build ships. We build weapons platforms that can fight entire fleets and win. The bird-like delegate from Thoris Prime spoke up, its voice trembling to the translator. You speak of your ship as if it's designed to fight alone against impossible odds. Surely you don't expect. We expect exactly that, Robert cut in, because that's what human military doctrine requires. See, we learned something that you apparently haven't. Wars aren't won by whoever has the most soldiers or the most ships. Wars are won by logistics, by technology, by the ability to deliver overwhelming force at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right place. He brought up new images showing human military academies, training facilities, simulation centers. Every captain who commands a human warship spends years studying thousands of historical battles. They learn from victories that happened 3,000 years ago. They analyze defeats and figure out what went wrong. They train in simulations that model every possible combat scenario we can imagine. Captain Rodriguez, who commands a Prometheus, has been preparing for this kind of mission since she was 18 years old. Robert continued. That's 24 years of training. 24 years of learning how to fight, how to command, how to win, just to command one ship. The chamber was completely silent now. Every alien representative was staring at Robert with a mixture of awe and fear. You want to know why one ship was enough? Robert asked quietly. Because we built it to be enough. Because humanity learned that overwhelming technological superiority prevents more wars than fighting them. Because we'd rather have one ship that can defeat 1,000 than have 1,000 ships that might lose to an equal force. He deactivated his holographic projector. The Prometheus isn't even our most advanced vessel. We have ships that make it look small. We have weapons we've never used, because we hope we'll never need to. We have the capability to do terrible things, and we choose not to. That's the philosophy of human warfare. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and always leave your enemies a chance to surrender before you destroy them completely. The silence that followed was deafening. The Galactic Council had finally understood what they'd invited into their ranks. A species that had weaponized everything, that had learned warfare as an art form, that had the power to destroy, but the wisdom to use it carefully. And that was more terrifying than any weapon could ever be. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood perfectly still in front of the massive tactical display, her eyes tracking every detail, like a predator studying its prey. The holographic screen showed over 2,000 Drathian warships positioned throughout the Koroth Nebula, a huge cloud of gas and debris that stretched across nearly a quarter of the Verithan system. The way the enemy ships were arranged told her everything she needed to know about their battle plan. Clever, she said quietly, almost admiringly, as her finger traced invisible lines through the holographic formations. They're hiding inside the nebula and using all that gas and debris to scramble sensors. They think it'll cancel out our technological advantage. They think if we can't see them clearly, we can't fight them effectively. Commander David Foster stood next to her, his arms crossed over his chest. The lines on his weathered face deepened as he studied the same display. He'd seen enough battles in his 23 years of military service to recognize good tactics when he saw them. It's standard ambush strategy, he said thoughtfully. They spread their forces throughout the nebula. We fly in, then they close in on us from all directions at once, hitting us from every angle simultaneously. Honestly, it's a smart plan. Against a normal fleet, it would probably work perfectly. But against the Prometheus? Elena asked, and there was the hint of a smile on her face. Foster's own smile was grim. Against the Prometheus, it's basically suicide. They just don't realize it yet. He reached over and pulled up more detailed scans, highlighting a particular cluster of ships deep in the heart of the nebula. This is what worries me more. See this? That's their command structure. 8 massive dreadnoughts, each one probably 3 times the size of a regular warship. And they're surrounded by at least 400 support vessels positioned to provide covering fire from overlapping angles. They're practically begging us to try to take out their leadership. Elena studied that central cluster of enemy ships for a long moment, her tactical mind working through the possibilities, the angles, the risks. Then she nodded to herself. Decision made. It's a trap inside a trap. The entire nebula is bait to lure us in. But that command cluster? That's where they really want us to go. They expect us to do one of 2 things. Either avoid the nebula completely and try to fight them in open space where they have a numbers advantage, or charge straight for their command ships and get caught in their kill zone. So what do we do? Lieutenant Tom Baker asked from his navigation station. He was younger than most of the bridge crew, but his fingers never stopped moving across his controls, constantly updating course calculations and trajectory plots. Do we find a third option? No, Elena said, turning away from the display to face her entire bridge crew. Her voice was calm, confident, the voice of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. We're going to do exactly what they expect. We're going to fly straight into their trap. We're going to head directly for their command structure, and we're going to trigger every single surprise they prepared for us. The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances. These were trained professionals, experienced officers who trusted their captain completely. But this sounded like madness. Lieutenant Lisa Morgan, the young censor officer, spoke up carefully. Captain, with all due respect, if we give them exactly what they're planning for, if we walk right into their trap, then they'll learn an important lesson, Elena interrupted smoothly. They'll learn that preparation doesn't mean anything if you don't have the right tools to back it up. See, the Zrathians have fought over 100 different species in their conquest across the galaxy. They've won every single time. You know why? Because they're smart. They study their enemies. They learn how different species fight. They develop tactics specifically designed to counter what their opponents do best. She gestured toward the view screen, where the Koroth Nebula glowed with beautiful swirls of purple and blue gas lit up by distant stars. Right now, they're sitting in that nebula feeling very confident. They've arranged all their forces based on what they think we can do. They've studied the preliminary reports about human ships from 3 months ago. They've calculated our probable weapons range, our maneuverability, our defensive capabilities. They've planned their ambush based on all that data. Elena's smile grew wider, and there was steel in it. But their intelligence is 3 months old. The information they have is from before the Prometheus went back to Mars Station for its final weapons upgrades. They're planning to fight the ship they think we are, not the ship we actually are. Commander Foster caught on to what she was saying, and his own expression shifted from concern to anticipation. They don't know about the new systems. They don't know about any of it, Elena confirmed. They don't know we upgraded our sensors to quantum-linked arrays that can see through any interference. They don't know we installed gravitational field generators that can bend space itself. They don't know about the new reactor core that tripled our power output. And they definitely don't know about the Ragnarok protocol. At the mention of that last item, every person on the bridge went very still. The Ragnarok protocol was classified, something only the senior officers even knew existed. It was humanity's ultimate combat ace, a weapon system so devastating that it had never been used in actual battle, only in controlled tests. Foster leaned in closer, lowering his voice. Captain, are you seriously considering activating Ragnarok? It's never been tested in real combat conditions. The simulation suggests it'll work, but... The simulation suggests it'll work perfectly, Elena said firmly. And I trust our engineers. They've never let us down before. She raised her voice so the entire bridge crew could hear. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to enter that nebula at full speed. We're going to head straight for their command cluster, like we're making a desperate gamble to cut off the head of their fleet. They're going to spring their ambush, hitting us from every direction with everything they have. She paused, making eye contact with each member of her crew. And then we're going to activate the Ragnarok protocol. We're going to blind every single sensor in that nebula except our own. We're going to shut down every electronic system they have. We're going to turn their carefully planned ambush into a shooting gallery where they can't see, can't communicate, and can't coordinate their attacks. And then we're going to systematically destroy every single ship they have. The bridge was completely silent as everyone absorbed what she was saying. This wasn't just a battle plan. This was a plan to completely and utterly annihilate an enemy force that outnumbered them 2,000 to 1. Captain, Morgan said quietly from her sensor station, if we do this, if we activate Ragnarok, the electromagnetic pulse will be so powerful that even the Galactic Council observation post will lose all their sensors. Nobody will be able to see what happens inside that nebula. Good, Elena said flatly. I don't want witnesses. The Zrathians need to fear what they can't see or understand. When we're done, when survivors start spreading stories about what happened in that nebula, the rumors and fear will do more to prevent future wars than any amount of diplomacy. Let them imagine what we're capable of. Let their imaginations fill in the blanks. Fear of the unknown is often more effective than fear of the known. Lieutenant Tom Baker spoke up from navigation. Captain, I've plotted a direct course to the nebula center, straight through their heaviest concentrations of ships. We could be there in 20 minutes at maximum speed. Make it so. Elena ordered, all hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. In 20 minutes, we're going to show the Zrathian horde why humanity doesn't need large fleets. She sat down in her command chair, her hands gripping the armrests. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten humanity's allies. We're going to teach them a lesson they'll never forget. And if they try to surrender, ask Lieutenant Jake Cooper from Communications. Elena's expression hardened, and for a moment she looked much older than her 42 years. The weight of command, the burden of the decision she was about to make, showed clearly on her face. They've murdered 17 billion innocent people in this system. They've enslaved entire species. They've shown no mercy to anyone who stood in their way. So we'll show them exactly what happens when they face an enemy who's been perfecting the art of war for 10,000 years. She took a deep breath. If they surrender before we engage, we'll accept it. But if they fire first, if they commit to their ambush, then there's no mercy. We end this threat completely and permanently. We make sure the Zrathian horde ceases to exist as a military power. Not because we want to, but because it's necessary. Because sometimes the only way to prevent future wars is to win the current one so decisively that nobody ever wants to fight you again. The Prometheus surged forward, its massive engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the Koroth Nebula. Inside that swirling cloud of gas and debris, 2,000 Zrathian warships waited in ambush, confident in their numbers, confident in their tactics, confident that they were about to destroy another foolish enemy. They had no idea what was coming for them. They had no idea that they were about to face a ship designed by a species that had spent its entire history learning how to wage war. And in less than 20 minutes, they would learn the hardest lesson of their lives, that sometimes one is more than enough. For hours into what would later be called the 16 hours, Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in her command chair, surrounded by the controlled chaos of active combat operations. The bridge lighting had shifted to red combat mode, and every screen showed different aspects of the hunt currently underway. She pulled up her personal log recorder and began speaking quietly, her voice steady despite the weight of what was happening around her. Personal log, Captain Rodriguez. For hours into engagement, the Ragnarok pulse activated exactly as planned. Every electronic system in the Koroth Nebula just went completely dark. Every single one except ours. She paused, watching her tactical display track another cluster of disabled Zrathian ships. The enemy fleet is flying blind right now. Their sensors are fried. Their communications are dead. Their targeting computers are completely offline. They can't see us. They can't talk to each other. They can't coordinate any kind of defense. She zoomed in on a section of the nebula where her drones were methodically working through disabled enemy vessels. But we can see everything. Our systems were specifically designed and shielded to operate through electromagnetic pulses strong enough to sterilize an entire planet. That nebula interference they were counting on to protect them? It means absolutely nothing to our quantum link sensor rays. We can see through it like it's not even there. Elena's voice dropped lower, and there was something almost sad in her tone. We are the only ship in this entire nebula that can see, that can communicate, that can fight at full capacity. Right now, we're not fighting a battle. We're hunting. And God help them, because nobody else can. She closed the log and returned her attention to the systematic destruction of an enemy that had chosen the wrong fight with the wrong species. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away from the Koroth Nebula, the Galactic Council's observation posts were experiencing their own crisis. In the main control room of Observer Station Verithan 7, dozens of technicians were frantically trying to restore their sensor systems. The station commander, a being whose species had been observing and recording galactic events for 3 million years, was recording an official report with shaking appendages. Official record, Observer Station Verithan 7. At 1447 Standard Galactic Time, all our sensors simultaneously lost contact with both the human vessel Prometheus and the Zrathian fleet. The electromagnetic pulse that came from the center of the Koroth Nebula was unlike anything in our entire database. We've observed stellar explosions, gamma-ray bursts, even a collapse of small black holes. None of them produced readings like this. The commander gestured to screens showing static and error messages. Every observation post within 3 light hours of the nebula experienced complete system failures. Temporary, thankfully, but complete. Our backup systems failed. Our tertiary systems failed. Even our mechanical instruments stopped working. Whatever the humans did in there, it was more powerful than anything we've ever recorded from a ship-based weapon. Another technician called out from across the room, "Commander, our sensors are still down. We have no data from inside the nebula. No visual, no radiation readings, no communications intercepts. Nothing. It's like that entire region of space has just disappeared from existence." The commander made a note in the official report. For the record, as of this moment, we have been without any sensor contact with the combat zone for 16 hours and 12 minutes. We have no way of knowing what's happening in there. No way of knowing if the Prometheus survived. No way of knowing the status of the Zrathian fleet. We can only wait and hope our systems come back online soon. What the Galactic Council observers didn't know, what they couldn't see or detect, was that inside the Koroth Nebula, the Prometheus was conducting the most one-sided battle in modern galactic history. The human warship moved through the gas clouds like a ghost, its advanced sensors tracking every disabled Zrathian vessel while remaining completely invisible to them. Commander Foster stood at his tactical station, calling out targets with mechanical precision. Cluster of 12 enemy vessels at Coordinate 77 Mark III. They're trying to regroup. Looks like they've got some backup power restored. Eliminate them. Elena ordered simply, don't let them organize any kind of resistance. A spread of antimatter torpedoes launched from Prometheus, their guidance systems perfectly locked onto targets the enemy couldn't even see. 12 Zrathian ships disappeared from the tactical display. Enemy dreadnought attempting to restart its main reactor, reported Lieutenant Morgan from sensors. It's one of their command ships. If they get power back, they might be able to coordinate the surviving vessels. Can't allow that. Foster, direct hit, primary batteries. The Prometheus's main guns fired, lances of coherent energy that could punch through a small moon. The Zrathian dreadnought never knew what hit it. One moment, it was desperately trying to restore power. The next moment, it simply ceased to exist, torn apart by weapons it never saw coming. This wasn't war anymore. It wasn't even really a battle. It was extermination, pure and simple. The Zrathians had walked into a trap of their own making. And now they were paying the price for underestimating humanity. Hours passed. The Prometheus moved methodically through the nebula, its combat drones spreading out like a net, finding every enemy ship, every escape pod, every piece of the Zrathian fleet that had dared to attack. The humans weren't being cruel or sadistic. They were simply being thorough. This had to end here. The Zrathian horde had to be broken so completely that they would never threaten anyone again. Lieutenant Baker checked his chronometer. "Captain, we've been engaged for 15 hours now. We've destroyed 97% of the enemy fleet. There are maybe 50 vessels left, all scattered, all disabled, all trying to hide in the densest parts of the nebula." "Find them all," Elena said quietly. "Every single one. This ends when there's nothing left of their military capability." Another hour passed. Then another. The hunt continued until finally, Lieutenant Morgan looked up from her sensors with an expression of grim satisfaction. "Captain," that's the last one, "I'm reading no more active enemy vessels. No more power signatures, except from debris. The Zrathian fleet has been completely eliminated." Elena sat back in her chair, suddenly feeling the weight of 16 hours of continuous combat operations. Around her, the bridge crew looked exhausted but professional. They'd just done something unprecedented in galactic history. They destroyed over 2,000 warships with a single vessel, and they'd done it so thoroughly that there wouldn't even be survivors to tell the tale. "Stand down from combat stations." Elena ordered. "Foster, begin damage assessment. Baker, plot a course out of the nebula. Cooper, start transmitting on all frequencies. Tell any Zrathian survivors that if they power down completely and wait for pickup, they won't be harmed. We're soldiers, not murderers. If anyone survived in escape pods or disabled ships, we'll recover them." "Aye, Captain," Cooper replied, though his expression suggested he doubted there would be many survivors to find. As the Prometheus slowly made its way out of the Koroth Nebula, the Ragnarok pulse effects finally began to wear off. Gradually, electronic systems throughout the region started coming back online. The Galactic Council observation posts flickered back to life, their sensors desperately trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Back at Observer Station Verithan 7, alarms suddenly stopped blaring. Screens that had shown nothing but static for 16 hours started displaying data again. The station commander rushed to the main display, his multiple eyes widening in disbelief at what the sensors were showing. "Get me a fleet count," he ordered urgently. "I need to know how many ships survived." A technician worked frantically at his console, running the scan over and over again because he couldn't believe the results. "Commander, I'm reading one active vessel. Just one. It's the Prometheus. They're transmitting coordinates for Zrathian survivor pickup. And the Zrathian fleet?" The technician's voice was barely a whisper. "Gone, sir. All of them. 2,147 vessels entered that nebula. None of them came out functional. We're reading debris fields, wreckage, disabled hulls drifting in the gas clouds. But no active warships. None at all." The commander stood frozen, trying to process what he was being told. One ship. One human ship had gone into that nebula against over 2,000 enemy vessels. And it had won. It had won so completely, so decisively, that there was literally nothing left of the Zrathian horde's military force. "Send this data to the Council immediately," the commander ordered, his voice shaking. "And send a message to the Prometheus. Tell them we're standing by to assist with survivor recovery. And tell them that the Galactic Council requests an immediate diplomatic communication." As that message was being transmitted, the Prometheus emerged from the Koroth Nebula like a ghost emerging from fog. Its hull was scorched in places, showing signs of the battle it had fought, but its shields were still at 80%. Its weapons still fully functional, its crew tired but completely intact. Not a single human casualty. Behind it, the nebula glowed with the faint light of thousands of debris fields, all that remained an invasion force that had conquered 47 star systems and thought itself invincible. The galaxy would never be the same.